Welcome to Puro Politics, the political podcast of the San Antonio Express News. My name is Gilbert Garcia, opinion writer and columnist, and I'm joined by
Metro editor Greg Jefferson,
Kerry Clack, columnist, editorial board.
And we're back after the Thanksgiving break. We didn't have a podcast last week, so we're kind of catching up on some things that have happened over the past couple of weeks. And I wanted to start with something that we kind of knew was going to happen. It had been kind of in the wind for a while, which was that Mayor Ron Nirenberg has appointed a new charter review commission, a 15-member commission, to study a few issues, and which I think could potentially be on the November 2024 ballot. I mean, Greg, what is the mayor looking to have the commission?
It's a whole
study?
spate of things. The possibility of adding maybe 2 council districts to the existing lineup of city council districts. There are 10 now, could go up to 12. And the reason for that is kind of obvious. San Antonio's had pretty healthy population growth over the past few decades. And right now, I think each council district, it averages about 145,000.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, per district. I mean, it's not that neat. I mean, there's some districts with more, some with less.
Sure.
The argument being that that's a lot for one person and a relatively small staff to represent. So I think that was an inevitable item on Nirenberg's agenda. The other inevitable one was an effort to get rid of the term limit and salary cap on the city manager. Eric Walsh is bound to, 7 years? 8
years.
8 years. And I think he's about midway through. He's about halfway through.
2027 would be the end. There's actually some urgency on this one.
There is.
Keep him,
Yeah. And, he's got the support of the business community. They don't want to lose Eric Walsh, and they don't want him, his salary capped. And I think this is looking ahead. One is, he could get an offer from another city. I mean, he could be recruited and lured by higher pay, and the city council would be powerless to do anything because they've got this cap in place. But I think the salary cap might have more to do with the person who comes after Eric Walsh. I get that this is something the business community has been pressing on for quite a while now. The idea being, if you want the top talent, you need to be willing to pay for it, and you can't hem them in with this kind of arbitrary term limit. So I think however this shakes out, I'm nearly certain that's going to be one of the items that goes to voters in November 2024. That's when Nirenberg, I think, is shooting for the next charter election. Then you've got the possibility of increasing city council pay. Maybe changing the city election to, put it on the presidential cycle and the midterm election.
There's been talk maybe about 4-year terms instead of terms.
Yeah. And that's part of it. And moving it to November. We'll see how that works out. But I think those are the main items on the agenda. And to kind of stiffen the spine of the Ethics Review Committee, make it a little more independent.
Yeah. Kerry, when you think about things like council pay, expanding city council, I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think council pay is something. I think it should be increased. It was such a big breakthrough in 2015 to actually give them pay and to allow folks who aren't independently wealthy or have a spouse who works to be able to serve on the city council. And I think it doesn't have to necessarily be as high as what council members in Houston or Austin make, but I think it could go up a bit. Yeah. The expansion of city council, it's inevitable, and you can go from 12 to 14, but this is the issue is going to be is inequity, because obviously the city grows towards the north, so it's only fair that if you're going to expand the council, that the northern part of the city should probably get those extra council folks. So what happens to those on the southern part of the city? What happens to District 2, which is historically the one seat where you have African-American representation? Yeah. Although to me, in the end, whoever wins a particular seat. But those are questions I'm really curious more. With the city manager, I think it's ridiculous that there would be any kind of a term limit, any kind of a salary cap. It's like we're talking about a sports team, any kind of a salary cap on someone, and that would restrict our ability to hold someone of talent. But the real debate is going to be on the expansion of the city council and just where you're going to put those extra seats.
It would be really thorny to do that. I want to mention on the issue of the city manager tenure and pay. This goes back to a charter amendment passed by the fire union. They got it on the ballot and they were able to get it passed in 2018. And it was really a revenge move against Sheriff Scully. They were fighting collective bargaining.
That's the irony of it. I mean, this was all about Cheryl Scully and did not affect her at all. It was the person who came after her. But I mean, that fight mortally wounded her. I mean, you'll remember that it was not just within weeks of that election that she announced her plan to retire.
Yeah. They had a package of propositions which were basically designed to weaken the power of the city government. And I always had a hard time believing that they thought this was in the best interest of the city. It felt like more like we want to get some revenge.
Right. I mean, and even the fire union, which championed these, like they're now willing to at least, it's like, yeah, we should consider that. It might be worth revisiting.
Yeah. On the council pay issue, this is, prior to 2015, council members were making $20 a meeting with a maximum of $1,040 a year. I think the mayor was making like $3,000 maximum a year. So I think that was a ridiculous situation. You did have at the time when you had that charter amendment on the ballot and it did pass, you had people like Greg Brockhouse, who I don't think was a council member yet. I think that was later, arguing against it, saying, because he'd worked on council as a council staff member and saying, this isn't a full-time job. This is just I never really accepted that because I think if you really are going to do the job properly, I think it is a full-time job. And we're now at council members making a little under $46,000 a year, the mayor making a little under $62,000. It's a big improvement. I think when they put that on the ballot, there was some talk about maybe having some kind of cost of living bump that would go, which I think would have solved the problem.
Yeah, I mean, just index it. Yeah, but they didn't do that. I think because they just wanted to get it passed.
I think they were thinking, we're going to have a hard enough time with this.
Yeah. I mean, it was, and thinking about it now, it seems a little bit strange to think that, I mean, there was this wasn't a certainty.
No.
I mean, paying your council, I mean, that's radical. This is San Antonio. Are you really going to do that? and they did. So, and the thing is, like, they did. So why not? I mean, what I hope is the Charter Review Commission comes up with some kind of, what their proposal is indexing. So
we don't have to do this every few years.
Exactly. Because I mean, you had this. I'm not sure if the city of Phoenix ever adopted that kind of mechanism, but I mean, there was a long period. They were, a couple of decades ago, they were in the same position, maybe not quite as bad as San Antonio, but they were getting paid peanuts. And they just, they steadily increased salary pay or council pay, but they had to go to the voters every time. Yeah. So you want to kind of avoid that, and you can do that by just kind of attaching it to, every time, the median household income increases or median income increases, the council pay goes in lockstep.
Whatever you think of any particular city council person, I mean, you work in City Hall, I work in City Hall, you've covered it. It's a full-time job. It's not just showing up on Thursdays. It's all the committees. It's going to neighborhood association meetings. It's a full-time job.
That's right.
It's not 9 to 5. It's not a lot of nighttime stuff.
Yeah, and anybody who says it's a part-time gig, they're either demagoguing it or they're just not paying attention. Yeah, they don't know what they're talking about.
It's worth remembering that earlier this year we saw a former District 7 council member, Anna Sandoval, leave her job and citing as one of the reasons the fact that she just needed to make more money than she was making as a council member. I know that we've got at least some of the council members working jobs on the side. And I think that's always been true. I mean, the thing that, and as far as the size of the council districts, I mean, when we went to single member districts in 1977, the average city council district had 65,000 people. Now, as Greg says, we're at 140 some thousand. So there's a lot of reason to want to expand the city council. I think with both issues, what's interesting is that it's always hard when someone asks, well, we gave you council pay in 2015. What have you produced as a result?
Yeah.
If you expand the council and so you don't have to represent as many people, what is that going to produce? It's always really hard to find tangible evidence of this. And I go back to former Mayor Hardberger, and one of his last major acts, and this is where I see a parallel with Ron Nirenberg, because I think this is going to be kind of one of the last things he wants to get done before he's term limited out. Phil Hardberger fought to get to loosen term limits for city council members, which I think was like you couldn't do more than 4 years, 2 terms at the time, and he had it expanded to 8 years. And he made the argument that we need to have a little more institutional knowledge. That's the council can function better. And it passed, but it's always hard to show. Well, what did that produce? Can you show me like how the council has operated better since then? I mean, there might be some anecdotes that people can provide. I think that these things are all positive. I think, expanding term limits. I think more council pay. Certainly, having more council districts and people having smaller districts, I think all these things are positive. But if you have someone who's a naysayer, it's really hard to show them.
Yeah.
Well, how is this benefiting the city? What is this producing?
I mean, the flip side of that is, so you're saying that the city is such that we really do need a part-time council, a truly part-time council that's paid nothing. I mean, like the city of San Antonio isn't worth more than that.
Yeah. And when we were talking about the savings to taxpayers by not paying them more, I mean, it's so minuscule.
Well, the contrast that we what 8 years that we voted to give city councils a real salary. And, to raise the salary, you got to go through this process again of the whole charter commission. And you contrast that with commissioner's court, where we deserve a pay. We got it.
That's right. So if this thing goes before the voters, if all of these things we talked about go before the voters in November 2024, I mean, I guess the question would be, would they be able to redraw the district lines in time for 2025?
Probably not.
Right?
No. Because I mean, you're talking that would be 6 months away. No, I think that's very unlikely.
And like Harry's saying, that's going to be one of the toughest battles we've seen in municipal politics for a long time, if that happens. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because when we went to the single member district, that's what assured, like for instance, District 2 having the quote unquote the black seat, but then to expand, before during the GGL, there were black council members, but it wasn't like something that was assured. And Art Hall showed that an African American can get elected on the north side.
True.
He won in District 8, that same year that that Patty Radel won in District 1. So. It can happen, but boy, you can just see that that would be the most contentious part of this.
Yeah, I mean, it seems almost inevitable that expanding city council seats would dilute the power of, not that they have a ton of power, but progressive council members like Terry Castillo and like Jayla McKay Rodriguez in District 2, because these are, what the population growth is mostly on the kind of northeast sides, and some on the southeast side. I mean, that gets overlooked a lot, but that's booming quite a bit too. And those are going to be probably more conservative voters than you would find, like the farther south you go. So yeah, that it's going to change the cast or the tent of city council. It's going to be a little bit more conservative, I think.
Yeah. And I mean, we saw just with the last, round of redistricting, our normal redistricting that we have every 10 years. I mean, there were battles between Manny Pelaez and Sandoval over the medical center and who's going to get this. And I mean, just multiply that by several times. A lot of different battles going on. So wanted to shift gears and talk about what's been going on in the state legislature in the past couple of weeks. I think a lot of our listeners know that the school vouchers issue, which has really been driving Governor Greg Abbott's decision to keep calling special sessions. We're in our 4th special session. And I mean, there have been other issues too, but this has been the primary one because you have a faction of Republicans who don't want school vouchers and in the Texas House, and they're have been blocking this thing. A couple of weeks ago, we had an 84-63 vote in the Texas House in which in favor of stripping out a voucher plank from the education bill. There were 21 Republicans who joined Democrats in this, including San Antonio's Steve Allison. So I also wanted to mention that there were 58 Republicans who did vote in favor of keeping vouchers in the bill. One of them was John Lujan in Texas House District 118. And he was one of the 58 endorsed by Greg Abbott right after that vote. And this is a swing district. This is one of the few genuine swing districts in the state of Texas. It's going to be very competitive in 2024. And I think whoever the Democratic candidate is going to be is going to talk about vouchers and John Lujan's vote to keep vouchers in this education bill. It's going to come up a lot, and that's something to watch. Carrie, what did you make of this? I mean, this just seems to keep repeating itself. That no matter how long Greg Abbott keeps extending the legislative session this year, there's a faction of Republicans who just do not want vouchers.
I don't think Governor Abbott gets enough credit for showing that bipartisanship can work. Bring Democrats and Republicans together and you can accomplish great things. And I think the governor should instead of, wallowing in despair and calling a fifth session, just say mission accomplished. Maybe, okay, the vouchers part didn't work, but look what I've done. I brought Democrats and Republicans together to oppose me.
Yeah.
It's the whole definition of insanity to keep doing the same old thing. And do you think he's going to call a fifth? It seems, I don't know if his appetite is.
He may be leaving into the party primary. Maybe.
I mean, you're reaching
a point. Sort out that way.
Yeah. You're reaching a point now. I mean, you're getting to the end of the year. It's just, it's absurd. I mean, what we've seen, and especially when, I mean, the people who are, I don't know that you can really find a compromise. I mean, there have been attempts, I think, to try to kind of massage this, but I don't. There are people, particularly in rural districts, that even though they're Republicans and they've got a Republican governor and lieutenant governor who want vouchers, they're seeing this as not beneficial to their districts. And I don't know what you're going to change unless the thinking is just that people are going to get so fed up with being that they're just going to cave in because they just can't take it anymore.
It seemed like a sign that things were really going bad was when he tried this move. If there was this agreement,
yes.
They had an agreement, and then he started blaming the speaker. Then in the midst of this agreement, when he should be, doing what he can to nail it down, he flies off to Israel to stand with Netanyahu. Yeah. And I mean, that was, so if you really believe that you have something going, that you can win this thing, then you wouldn't have done that. And he knows he's lost this. He's not going to win.
It was a really strange move, I thought. Yeah. One priority of the governor's that has passed is SB 4, and an equally controversial bill. And this is a bill that takes what's a federal issue, immigration, and basically has the state kind of stepping on the federal jurisdiction. Makes it a criminal act, illegal entry into the United States, a criminal act. If convicted, you'll be forced to return to Mexico, and if you fail to do so, you could be looking at a 20-year prison sentence. There are several things that I think are wrong with this. I mean, I want to get your thoughts. I mean, Greg, when you look at this,
the risk of, or the chance that people will be profiled, that would be a big one. That would be a big one. Yeah, and I think I would expect this thing is going to be challenged in court. Probably, this is going to be litigated, hopefully to death.
That's actually I had 4. That's 5 because you're right. This is going to be an endless litigation.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's inevitable, and I think the danger that this will feed profiling is going to be a really strong argument.
Yeah,
probably.
And there's and I truly believe that most law enforcement officers aren't how am I say this? Profiling definitely exists, but I do believe that most right-minded law enforcement officers are not going to see the three of us somewhere in Dallas and think that two of us, at least certainly one of us, but two of us, might not be legal. But the legislation makes that possible for it to happen.
Yeah.
And it's going to happen.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, when I look at this, I think the clear issue, one of the clear issues is immigration is a federal issue. It's not, the state really does not have the right to create these kinds of laws. You're also looking, as Greg said, at the fact that there's going to be a profiling issue. One thing that's really strange about this too is the idea of returning people to Mexico when in fiscal year 2023, Border Patrol agents, their encounters with migrants at the southern border found that I think 83% of them were from countries other than Mexico. Mm-hmm. So returning them to a country that they're, in most cases, these migrants are not from, Mexico has made it clear they're not happy about this. Yeah. And so I don't think that you're going to have any cooperation with them coming from this. So that's also just a very strange element to it. It's going to get challenged. If it goes to the Supreme Court, I don't know that I have a lot of confidence in this current Supreme Court to make the constitutionally sound decision. I might be wrong, and I'd like to be wrong on that. This is just a really bad idea on several fronts.
Horrible idea.
Yeah, yeah. So anyway, we're going to continue following what's going on with the state, and we're at an interesting point now because we're getting close as with the holidays coming up. We're getting close to the point where we're going to start. Both the city and county elections, I think, are going to start to take shape, and we're going to have, it's going to be clear who I think we're going to see running in some of the legislative races in Bexar County. So we thank everybody for listening. Hope everyone's doing well. Hope you had a great Thanksgiving, and we'll be back with you next week. Take care.